Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Grit Live Pre-Race. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me is Adam Limmery, Ben Snyder, and Daniel Zay from Races, the girls from behind the helmet. Leave a comment down in the chat, ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Before we get started, we'd like to give a big shout out to our awesome Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshell, and Robin. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you for investing in Grit Network and hope others watching will do the same. This weekend, really busy. We have W Series, Formula One in Hungary, INDYCAR, Nascar doubleheader at the Brickyard, Supercars is at the Benton Motorsport Park, and Formula E, a doubleheader in London. Lots of racing all over the world, but we'll start off with a recap of the W Series race in Hungary and see if Jamie Chadwick was able to keep up her winning streak.
Well, Kobe, only 3 drivers have won a W Series race since the start of the 2021 season. Alice Powell, who won today in the wet, breaking Jamie Chadwick's streak as that comes to an end. She finished in second place. Emma Kimmelinen is the only other to win since the inaugural season, doing so at Spa last year. So we're fortunate enough on the pre-race show today to have Daniel from Racers, the girls behind the helmet, joining us. So Daniel, I want to ask you here, Powell was the last driver to win before Chadwick's streak, so she's kind of bookended the streak there. Do you think this can be a breakthrough for her in the W Series to start racking off more wins?
Hello everybody. By the way, I think it already was a very big an important step for Alice, because now she's second in the standings. I think and she's equal on points with Weitske. So I think now the battle is really for second place, because Jamie is way too far away from the others in the point standings, and so Jamie is now pretty much. We will talk about this later, but she's pretty much unbeatable in the points, I believe. So for Alice, winning today was another very important step towards the second place, which is probably realistically the only goal that now she has. Weitske had a very consistent run in the championship so far. And she was she also made up on one position, because Abby Pulling was second prior to this race. So Abby Pulling lost 2 places in the drivers' standings. And for Alice, I think this win is really important in the championship for second now.
Well, and Daniel, as you mentioned, it is pretty much a race for second at this point. We do still technically have 6 drivers mathematically left in the championship hunt. Of course, Chadwick and Powell, Weitske-Visser, Abby Pulling, Belen Garcia, and Nuria Marti. However, if Jamie Chadwick just goes out and wins Singapore, she wraps up a championship, or she can simply finish 7th or better throughout the next 4 races. Nobody can take the championship lead. Given how strong she's been, I don't think she has to worry about that too much. So, Daniel, what are your thoughts on Chadwick's chances to start winning again at Singapore, as well as some of the drivers, like I just mentioned, or maybe even some that are out of a championship hunt, such as Kimmelinen in 7th and Marta Garcia down in 8th?
Well, Singapore is a really interesting track. It's a little bit more similar to Miami compared to, it's of course a street circuit, but also as a layout, it's quite similar to Miami. So I believe that she did well, but she didn't have the dominant pace that she's shown in the race after that. So I think it's going to be interesting. She has never, well, she won the race 2 and also race 1, but her pace was not like in some of the, like in Silverstone, for example, where she was like 30 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack. So I think there are still opportunities for some of the others to win races, but on the long run, the championship is quite wrapped up at this point. As you mentioned, if she wins, nobody can strip her of the title, and that, with still a few races to go, it's quite some achievement. But Weitske-Visser and also Alice Powell will probably try to give away some other good points. Abby Pulling, she's not been on a really lucky streak so far in the last couple of races. She was quite strong in Le Castellet and also here battling, but at the end of the day, she didn't make the move for 4th on Marta Garcia today. I think she's also quite looking at the points and trying not to bin races. Belen Garcia and Nerea Marti, on the other hand, had a really bad race today. They made contact on the first lap after the safety car restart, which is now what you want from two teammates. Nerea was really under pressure on the first lap, even on the safety car. She spun behind the safety car and had to give up third place. So not really a great race from Nerea. She's been really unlucky. I think I'm not sure if she's still in the battle for second at this point, because they are now at 44 and 46 points, Belen and Nerea, while some of the others are more on 65 and 64 points. So 20 points in between the really Powell, Visser, and Pulling, and then Garcia and Marti, even though they are still mathematically in contention, as you mentioned. So, but now Kimi Lainen also, again, another really not great race for the Finnish driver. I think at this point it's a little bit psychological for her. She really thought that she was in contention for victories on a more consistent level at the beginning of the season, while after a few unlucky rounds, she is starting to become a little bit impatient. And also her mistake today, where she tangled with Jessica Hawkins, is a little bit of an impatience error, in my opinion. And no points for her again. So that it's starting to become a little heavy on the points side for Emma. While on the other hand, Marta Garcia is really having a good streak so far. So she was in 5th place in France, and now 4th in Hungary. We're starting to see again the Marta Garcia of the inaugural season, where she was 4th at the end of the points in the season. So I think Marta is on an uphill trend, while Emma is really trying to find again. She has the pace, but she's really trying to find again, that what she was doing in previously.
And Daniel, I think we have a comment from our own Joe Samaniego asking for some clarification. Is the top 8 guaranteed return invite to the W Series like last year? Do you want to answer that quickly?
Well, so far we haven't had any news about that. So it always been something like that, where it was top 12 in the first year, then it was top 8 last year. We haven't had any news from W Series about the drivers that will be confirmed. I believe, well, we've seen some good progress from some of the rookies, so probably it would be good for them to have a second season to continue that improvement. But we haven't had so far the official confirmation of how many drivers will get into the confirmation spots. So I think that also will be very important coming into the next rounds, which are quite far away from now, because the next round is going to be in October, and then we have COTA in Mexico. So quite a few months now for W Series to announce all these important details, and we will try to report on that closely.
Well, the perfect season is not going to happen for Jamie Chadwick, but I think it's still going to be a dominant championship season at the end of the day. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. And now we're going to shift gears over to Formula One. It feels kind of weird to say Mercedes are a surprise when they're on top, but that's how it's been this season. And Kobe will get into all that right now.
Yeah, really surprising things happening in Hungary this weekend with Formula One. And in a wet free practice 2 this morning, Nicholas Latifi in the Williams was quickest over Charles Leclerc, and we even have someone in the chat room saying that it was a crazy fast. Oh, in free practice 3, my bad there for Nicholas Latifi. And qualifying, we saw even more surprising drama when Sergio Perez went out in Q2, not advanced into Q3. Both Ferraris and Mercedes made it to Q3, and Max Verstappen, but Max Verstappen had some issues in qualifying, so he's starting down in 10th. Adam, with this track history of strategy been important? Could Max be in a vulnerable position without his teammate?
Oh yeah, Kobe. You're with Max Verstappen. I think you're going to have the right pit strategy to get around his competition in order to be successful at Hungary, because at the Hungarian ring, it's very hard to pass. So Max Verstappen is going to have to use a lot of strategy to get around his competition tomorrow. So him starting 10th, that's not like him. Normally he starts up front. So he's going to have use a lot of strategy, race smart, and drive smart in order to get to the front and contend for the win.
If Verstappen wants to win from 10th on the grid, he's going to have to get lucky with, some weather or something crazy coming in and affecting everybody throughout the race like we saw last year, or he's going to have to throw caution to the wind and just go on a completely different strategy from the Ferraris and Mercedes of George Russell ahead of him. I just don't see him being able to go from 10th to 1st on the track. So he's definitely going to have to play the strategy cards if he wants any shot of winning tomorrow's race.
Yeah, some of the biggest news to come out in Formula One in the last few days has been one of F1's most successful drivers made a big announcement. Four-time Formula One world champion Sebastian Vettel will retire from Formula One at the end of the year, leaving behind a very impressive legacy. A shot first career win in Monza with AlphaTauri, the team formerly known as Toro Rosso, in the 2008 Italian Grand Prix. 53 Grand Prix victories, 4 championships on the road from 2010 through 2013, a legacy largely built through his time with Red Bull and then Ferrari, now ending his F1 career after 2 seasons with Aston Martin. What are your thoughts on Vettel's F1 legacy, and how big of a hole will this leave in the paddock?
Well, my thoughts are he's been a tremendous ambassador for the sport, both on and off the track. Of course, we know that his time doing those things off the track is, I'm sure, just beginning, and he's going to continue to fight for the causes that he believes in, and continue to do all those good things away from the track. Just because he's not driving in Formula One, that's not going to change that fact at all. But let's look at Vettel on the track as well. Obviously, one of the greatest drivers, certainly Kobe of our generation, and has an argument for one of the greatest all time. I know maybe some younger fans, maybe the fans that got into it in, the Drive to Survive era, if you will, may not have been around to witness Vettel's 4 consecutive championships with Red Bull, to witness his 9 consecutive race wins to close the 2013 season, and the dominance that he enjoyed that season in particular, bookending his championship run with the Red Bull team. Of course, his shock win at Monza in 2008 with Toro Rosso. It's been truly incredible to watch him, all throughout his career. And then, of course, he continued to win at Ferrari, never quite broke through with the championship. It was always going to be a stretch to see him add on wins at Aston Martin, with no disrespect to the people working at that team. They're not quite at the level of the big 3 teams, if you will. But it's been great to have Vettel in the sport the last couple of years. Still with a platform to be able to speak on the issues that he believes in, like I mentioned. And, the sport is certainly going to miss him. And I've got to say, when you look at the statistics, 53 race wins and 4 championships, it puts him top 3 all time, in terms of statistics when it comes to Formula One drivers. I don't know if, he might not be 3rd all time in most people's lists. You've got the Schumachers and Hamiltons, Sennas and Prosts of the world, but he is easily a top 10, maybe even an argument for a top 5 Formula One driver in the history of this sport. And Joe asking, would Vettel still retire if he had an opportunity with a top team like Mercedes or even McLaren? I got to think he might keep going a couple more years. I think he's still at an age where he could continue to compete and drive well. And, I've got to think if he were in a little bit more competitive car, it might make the decision a little bit more difficult to step away.
Sebastian Vettel had a really great career in Formula One. Like you guys mentioned, he won 4 F1 world titles, 53 Grand Prix victories. He raced against some of the best, and so he can say he did an excellent job racing in his career. And now that he's gone from Aston Martin, since he's retiring, who takes his spot? It's gonna be interesting to see with Aston Martin who they put in that car for 2023.
Yeah, Adam, there's already a lot of questions over the potential driver that could replace Sebastian Vettel next year at Aston Martin. Already, a lot of names are circulating through the rumor mill, and it's going to be interesting to see which driver that they choose. I know Sebastian Vettel said that if it was up to him, he'd have his young protege Mick Schumacher replace him at Aston Martin, and it'll be interesting to see if Mick is willing to cut his ties with Ferrari. It seems like the path of Ferrari right now for Mick Schumacher is really crowded with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz there for the foreseeable future. So there's not going to be really any legitimate opportunities for Mick to move up to the Scuderia anytime soon. And maybe Mick might get impatient and think this might be the best career move for him to go to Aston Martin. We'll have to see how F1 silly season unfolds. And in regards to Sebastian Vettel's F1 legacy, I remember when I first started watching Formula One, so it was a Sebastian Vettel world, and we were all living in it, winning almost every single week, dominating, and nobody could touch Sebastian Vettel at at all. And that was quite a remarkable 4-year run he had with Red Bull, winning all of those championships, and then found some success at Ferrari. Probably not the type of success he wanted to see, but still quite a Formula One career Vettel's had. And in recent years, he's really become quite an activist off the track. And I have a feeling that's going to be the next part in Sebastian Vettel's legacy, where he's going to continue to speak out about issues that are very important for him, and just be a great ambassador for the sport, and continue to do great things in society as well. So Formula One's really going to miss Sebastian Vettel, but his legacy will live on forever. And get back to the racing on track at the Hungarian, qualifying just finished up, and George Russell is on the pole, and George Russell could potentially get his first career Formula One win this weekend, especially with Mercedes looking a lot stronger in recent rounds, and some drivers who have gotten their first win here, Jensen Button, Esteban Ocon, and here's my question for you guys: do you think George Russell could become the next first time Formula One race winner?
Kobe, I do believe so. I think George Russell has proven he can race against the best. We've seen him battle Max Verstappen this year, so I do believe George Russell will win sometime this year. But does he win at the Hungarian? Stick around to see if I pick him for pick a winner at the end of the show.
Well, now that Carlos Sainz has a win, I think George Russell is easily the one that you can say is next in line to become a next first-time winner. Whether or not that's going to happen this weekend is a different question. I think he's got a really great shot at it, especially with Verstappen being down a little bit further on the grid. And, of course, we've talked all the last few weeks about Ferrari struggles and the conflicts going on in that team right there. I know they're starting right behind Russell, but I think George Russell is going to be the priority for Mercedes as well. We got Hamilton starting a little bit further back on the grid as well, not quite as far as Verstappen, but the pace that Mercedes seem to have this weekend, if they can hold that pace throughout the entire race, because again, sometimes a car or a driver can go fast in one lap but not hold that pace throughout an entire race. We'll have to see if they can do that, but if they can, I would not be surprised at all if George Russell is certainly going to be standing on the podium, I think, tomorrow if everything goes right, and he might even be standing in the middle. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how well George Russell performs in, this particular track at the Hungarian. It's really hard to overtake, so that might potentially work as in George Russell's advantage. But got those Ferrari starting behind him. Gonna make it really tough for him. Then Lewis Hamilton's a little bit further down the grid, and Max Verstappen really surprising that he's gonna be rolling off the grid 10th tomorrow morning. And with this track being so difficult to overtake, I think a lot of people were originally going to pick Max Verstappen for their pick a winner, but because of how strong he's been running lately. But considering the fact that it's so hard to pass at this particular track, might make some people change their mind. But anything can happen. Verstappen could just storm through the field like he probably will do, or there could be a strategy call that could help him gain some positions on the track. But really looking forward to tomorrow's race, because it seems like a lot of variables going to be at play, and we could see something really surprising.
Absolutely. And now let's shift gears to the IMS road course in the NTT INDYCAR Series. Heading there for the second time this year, coverage of the Gallagher Grand Prix begins on NBC less than an hour from now. Qualifying yesterday had some surprises. Arrow McLaren, SP, and Team Penske looked strong, but it wasn't a good qualifying effort for Chip Ganassi Racing as an organization. The championship points leader Marcus Ericsson came to a stop and ended up with no time set. He'll start deep in the field from last place in 25th position. Jimmy Johnson will start 23rd. The biggest surprise, however, was Scott Dixon qualifying 20th. Believe it or not, the fastest Ganassi car starting 7th is the driver with the most hanging over his shoulder and getting sued by his team. Of course, we're talking about Alex Palou. Adam, we'll start with you. Is Ganassi a step behind the other top teams this weekend? And especially considering the point situation, should Ericsson be concerned about something going wrong starting at the very back?
Yes. And if I'm Marcus Ericsson and I'm the points leader, this is what I do. I race smart and I drive smart and use some pit strategy. Maybe come in before the leaders do and gain some on-track advantage. Plus, take advantage of everyone's mistakes up front. So Marcus Ericsson needs to have a smart race today and drive smart in order to continue as the IndyCar points leader. And it was a real surprise to see Scott Dixon starting deep in the field and Alex Palou being the highest Chip Ganassi Racing qualifier is shocking after everything that's happened to him. So Marcus Ericsson needs to have a very smart race today at the IMS road course if he wants to hang on to his points lead in the IndyCar Series.
You're absolutely right, Adam. Marcus Ericsson certainly is going to need to have a smart race. You need to make sure you're not getting caught up in trouble at the very beginning. But sometimes, you can't really help it because some people bring trouble to you. But I'd be very stressed if I was Marcus Ericsson heading into this race, starting at the very back. And sometimes at the IMS road course in the start, we typically see some chaos, with cars coming together. And the last thing Marcus Ericsson needs to do is get involved in an incident and have a lap one retirement. I'm sure it's very frustrating to see his championship rivals starting towards the front, like Joseph Newgarden and Will Power, because those are the guys Ericsson obviously needs to keep up with, and it's going to be really hard for him to try to come from the very back and get towards the front. But it's certainly possible. He could pit and then have the caution come out. Then the front runners that haven't pitted yet, and he could very well just leapfrog them and have the advantage. So the day is not already lost for Marcus Ericsson. Obviously, there's still a lot in play, but he can certainly get up there and maintain his championship lead. And overall, I'm really surprised to see the lack of speed from Chip Ganassi. And it's funny because just the other night on Grid Tonight, we were just talking about how the being sued by his own team will probably distract Palou, and we probably see it in his performances. And with Palou being the fastest Ganassi car so far this weekend, he might very well prove us wrong and keep defying all of the outside noise and remaining focused on the job until his time with Chip Ganassi comes to an end.
And on that note, some more silly season news came out towards the end of this week as well, with Juncos Hollinger Racing signing Callum Ilott for the next 2 years. There's a possibility the team could expand to a 2-car operation next season, but not at the expense of hurting the program that they've built with Ilott. Some other IndyCar teams have expressed interest in signing Ilott, but he chose to keep building something special with the smaller Juncos operation. Ilott's been overachieving in the number 77 Chevrolet, and it surprised some that he didn't move on to a bigger team. Kobe, could this move pay off for Ilott in the long run?
Absolutely. I think this move could certainly pay off for Callum Ilott long term. Right now, he's certainly raising his profile by overachieving in this small team. Juncos Hollinger Racing, one of the smallest teams in the IndyCar paddock, and for him to be doing so much with so little is super impressive. I think coming back with them for another 2 years or so, I truly believe that Ilott can raise his profile even further, so he can potentially get better seats than he would have gotten next year. I know with Alex Palou's contract situation, the number 10 ride with Chip Ganassi Racing should be available, and a lot of people thought that might be a potential slot for Callum Ilott to go to, but he decided to stay with Juncos, and it seemed like that team has certainly sold him on something for the future, how they plan to build this program moving forward. And you mentioned, Ben, that possibility they could expand to a 2-car operation next year. So they certainly want to build a stronger program in the future. I think it might be a good idea for Juncos to try to get him a veteran teammate, somebody with IndyCar experience to continue helping Callum grow. And I see Callum a lot in terms of sports. He's like the #1 overall pick in a draft, and we saw how talented he was when he raced over in FIA Formula 2, and with Ilott being similar to a first round, a #1 overall pick in the draft, this is a driver Juncos Hollinger Racing can build this team around and move closer towards the front and really have that program take off. So I think it was a really big win for this organization to bring Callum Ilott back to the team. They keep building and building, and who knows, he might turn them into a weekly contender, and then he might sign a more long term contract with Juncos. I think if you're Ricardo Juncos, you have to be extremely excited to bring this young British driver back to the team.
Callum Ilott is going to be a future star in the NTT IndyCar Series, and with him signing this multi-year contract extension is awesome. And Kobe, you mentioned Juncos Hollinger Racing could have a 2-car team. This is a huge win for Juncos Hollinger Racing, signing Callum Ilott to this deal, and who knows, maybe down the road, Callum Ilott could contend for wins in one of the smallest teams that the NTT IndyCar Series has.
Well, of course, who can never forget that epic bump day in 2019 when Kyle Kaiser, driving for Juncos, took down, as Lee Diffie put it, one of the greatest global motorsport giants with Fernando Alonso and McLaren. That team has certainly come a long way in the 3 years since then, and I'm sure they're going to continue to build something special with the current partnership that they have with Callum Ilott in the years to come. Now, the IMS road course is one of Will Power's best tracks. Out of all active drivers, he's won here the most, a total of 5 times, and he's also the defending winner of the Gallagher Grand Prix. Power starts 4th for today's race and sits 8 points behind Ericsson in the championship fight. And of course, as we mentioned, Ericsson is starting at the back. So it's a good opportunity for Power to get a clean start and challenge for the lead, while Ericsson has to worry about getting caught up in an incident, carving his way through the field. On a side note, Power's teammate Joseph Newgarden has been cleared to race today. He hasn't missed a beat since losing consciousness and hitting his head after the Iowa race. Newgarden was fast in practice, making the Firestone Fast 6 in qualifying, and he will start 5th in the race. So, Adam, given Power's success of his track, is he likely to leave as the points leader, considering where Ericsson's starting?
Yes, I do believe Will Power leaves the Gallagher Grand Prix at the IMS road course with the points lead. And it's good to see Joseph Newgarden back on track after what happened with the crash at Iowa Speedway last time out. Will Power, with Marcus Ericsson starting in the back, Will Power needs to take advantage of that and go out and have a strong race and hope that Marcus Ericsson has some sort of trouble, because to me, we do have a new points leader after today's race. He drives for Team Penske. His name, Will Power.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. I certainly think that given the circumstances that we've seen so far this weekend, it certainly favors Will Power to leave this track as the points leader. Like we said about Marcus Ericsson, he has to come all the way from the back to the front, and there's a greater chance that he could get caught up in an incident or have an issue trying to get closer to Power on the track, while Power only has to, pass 3 drivers, and he'll be the race leader. I certainly think that heading into the race, that everything favors Will Power right now, and considering how good he is at this particular racetrack, and the defending winner of the Gallagher Grand Prix, and he could have won the GMR Grand Prix in the spring, but the rain and all the crazy things going on really played a factor in him not getting it done there. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Will Power leaves the second race this year at the IMS road course as the new championship points leader, and Marcus Ericsson will look to try to catch him up again.
Well, with how close he is to the points lead, if he wins the race, there's not really much that Ericsson could do anyway. And given how Ericsson's starting at the back, I've got to think that unless something crazy happens, power gets taken out, and Ericsson's able to recover a little bit and salvage a decent finish, you very well could see a shift in the points lead after the IndyCar race this weekend at the IMS Road Course. Now, speaking of the IMS Road Course, let's shift gears to a rare doubleheader weekend with NASCAR. And Kobe will go ahead and start talking about the NASCAR Cup Series.
Yes, it's certainly a special doubleheader weekend. NASCAR shared an IMS road course with the NTT IndyCar Series with 5 races to go until the playoffs. 14 winners so far after Denny Hamlin got disqualified last week and gave Chase Elliott his 4th win of the year. In the last 5 races, Elliott's won a total of 3 times and hasn't finished worse than second. Then we have 4 drivers with 2 wins and a bunch of drivers with only 1, and those drivers are Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, Tyler Reddick, who just won the pole for the race tomorrow, Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, and Kurt Busch, who's missing his 2nd consecutive race due to concussion-like symptoms. He'll be replaced once again by young Xfinity regular Ty Gibbs. Adam, which driver has the best chance of getting their 2nd win of the season?
I'm going to take a look at 2 drivers, Austin Cindric and Chase Briscoe. Austin Cindric has had success on road courses in the past, so he could get his 2nd win of the year. And Chase Briscoe, we all know what happened last year here at the IMS road course, so I'm gonna say either Austin Cindric or Chase Briscoe.
I think you're reading my mind because those are the exact 2 drivers that I was thinking as well. Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric look really good in qualifying. Few moments ago, I think Austin Cindric coming to Indianapolis Motor Speedway is really special for him, given all of the memories that he was able to see through his father, Tim Cindric, the team president at Team Penske, with all of their wins in the month of May in the Indianapolis 500, and Cindric, he's ready to make his own memories as well by taking a checkered flag at the famed Yard of Bricks in the NASCAR Cup Series. And Chase Briscoe, he ran extremely strong last year at the IMS Road Course. Probably would have certainly been in contention to win if it wasn't for that late race penalty. I remember Denny Hamlin was very upset with him because Briscoe had been penalized and then ended up spinning Hamlin out and ruining his chances of winning that day. I'm sure Chase Briscoe's learned a lot since that incident, and he'll try to make sure that he doesn't get penalized for anything, doesn't make mistakes, and try to win at the track that he calls home. And next year, Roger Penske confirmed the Cup Series race at Indianapolis will stay on the road course, but things could change in 2023 and beyond with the possible return of the Brickyard 400 on the oval under consideration. One possibility Penske mentioned is alternating back and forth between the road course and the famed IMS Oval. Ben, should the Brickyard 400 return, or you'd be fine switching back and forth between each layout?
Well, Kobe, there's a saying, you never know what you've got till it's gone. And I think the Brickyard 400 falls into that category for me. Listen, I've been on record the last several years before the Brickyard 400 disappeared as saying the Bristol Night Race is the 4th crown jewel. The Brickyard 400 has lost its luster. The novelty of stock cars on the IMS Oval is worn off at this point, and the racing simply was not that great. And I think now that we've seen the hole that in the schedule that the Brickyard 400 is left, and also consider the race that we saw last year and the controversy was the curb coming up and the incompetency from race control and how they restarted that race and the accidents that we saw in the multiple overtime finishes, just an absolute mess. And you can point to the 2008 race where we have tire issues, but that I think, pales in comparison. At least, there wasn't, a bunch of massive accidents. It was frustrating to see competition cautions every handful of laps, but, it was just an absolute mess last year. And I think, Kevin Harvick has been the most outspoken about it, but a lot of drivers are saying, it doesn't make sense for a series of our level, of our prestige, to be going the wrong way down the front straightaway at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I also don't like the idea of, alternate hosts or alternate tracks for alternate years that Penske's considering here. I would like to see the Brickyard 400 return the right way, and that's become an annual event, become a crown jewel again, in the NASCAR Cup Series, I wouldn't actually mind seeing them both. I think I've always been a proponent of the idea that we shouldn't go to the same track more than once. It's very rare to see that in any other racing series around the world. Ironically, the INDYCAR series has started doing that with the IMS road course the last couple of years, but I think their schedule has some issues that they need to iron out as well. And I think in a perfect world, they probably wouldn't be doing that. They'd probably be going to other tracks anyway. It's just kind of to keep the race count up a little bit. But I would not mind seeing, like the opening act, if you will, like the IMS road course race, and then turn right around, come back next week and run the Brickyard 400 as a crown jewel race. I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. But I think there's been a lot of fans posting old highlights this weekend on social media. They love the Brickyard 400. They love the idea that, a new tradition was started in 1994. That was Bob Jenkins' famous call as Jeff Gordon was crossing the yard of bricks. And he said, years from now, when X number of Brickyard 400s have been run, and yet here we are almost 30 years later, and we're not running the Brickyard 400 anymore. We're running the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, going the wrong way down the front stretch because we're running the road course. It just doesn't seem right to not have that race on the schedule, given how big of a deal it was in 1994 when it first began. And I think now that fans have not had that the last couple of years, if they were to bring the race back, you might see the stands fill back up a little bit. You might see the ratings go back up as well. And I think people would start to take the race more seriously as a crown jewel event. So I think it's time to bring it back as soon as there's an opportunity. And hopefully Roger Penske will do just that.
I will say, Ben, it's been really interesting seeing the opinion on the Brickyard 400 shift in just the last year or so, because towards the end, a lot of people were saying that they really wanted to see the Brickyard 400 go away because the racing was boring on the oval. There was hardly any passing besides the restarts, and it was just overall a dull event that lost its prestige over the years. And you could really tell that by the fans that were sitting in the grandstands, extremely empty compared to the Indianapolis 500. Obviously, I think even if they bring the Brickyard 400 back, you're certainly not going to get the great crowd you see in the month of May for the Indianapolis 500. I think that's out of the question. It's not going to be like the inaugural Brickyard 400 crowd anymore. But certainly, if you want the Brickyard 400 to come back, I certainly think that people need to show up, obviously, and show support for that event. Because if you don't show up, what's the point? And getting back to the change in perspective from the fans. When the Brickyard 400 went away, people were actually celebrating. They said they were excited to see the road course come away. Then you have a year race on the road course, and people are like, yeah, maybe we should consider bringing the Brickyard 400 back. But overall, I think it's really good that Roger Penske is going to keep the idea open of bringing back this race. And like you were saying, Ben, I know you've been consistent that you like to see in the future in the NASCAR schedule each track only get one date. But considering the prestige of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you can certainly make an argument that it deserves two races on the schedule, run the IMS road course and then the oval in the same season. And I guess Penske's talking about the possibility of alternating back and forth, to try to make the Brickyard try to make it special again, where it comes every other year rather than every single year. So it's going to be interesting to see what Roger Penske and NASCAR are going to decide to do in the future. But I have a feeling that we might see the Brickyard 400 return in the future, especially since the next gen car has certainly improved the racing a lot this year on the larger racetracks. And now shifting gears to the Repco Supercars Championship, they're competing at the Bend Motorsport Park. And the weekend kicked off with a surprise pole setter. Ticket for race and wildcard driver Zach Best took a surprise pole in an unsponsored car, had a great start over his teammate Cam Waters and Shane Van Gisbergen, but a young part-time supercars driver was no match for the best in the business, no pun intended, SVG, who ended up winning again while Best settled for a strong top five. As Matt White from Grid History stated, SVG continues to make the other drivers look average with his superb performances. And to put into perspective how strong of a season Van Gisbergen is having, he's leading the championship by 323 points now, an entire race weekend ahead of the competition. If SVG maintains his margin or expands his points lead by the end of this weekend, he could theoretically take a vacation and skip the next Sandown race weekend in August and still have the points lead leaving there. However, the second and third race of the band could throw a curveball and a possible SVG sweep. Rains in the forecast. It's chilly this weekend. Other variables could be in play to give other drivers a proper opportunity to dethrone him. Adam, Can anyone really challenge Van Gisbergen this weekend, or is SVG about to start cruising to another championship?
First of all, I want to give a call to Tickford Racing's wild card entry, Zach Vesper sitting on the pole against some of the best in supercars and in an unsponsored car. That's saying something. And the Ford Mustangs have dominated here at the Bend Motorsports Park in the past. So, it was kind of surprising to see SVG winning. He had really good pit strategy. So, do I see SVG winning the last two races this weekend? I'm going to have to say yes. And right now, if you want to, you gotta find a way to beat that driver of the number 97 Red Bull car in the Repco Supercross Championship, because we're living in a Shane Van Gisbergen world when it comes to supercars, and you gotta find a way to knock off the defending champ. It's not going to be easy.
You're absolutely right, Adam. It's certainly not going to be easy. I understand several rounds ago, a lot of us thought that Shane Van Gisbergen might have lost just a step or two of the competition gained on him. Thought they might potentially start reeling him in, but SVG seems like he was just playing mind games with them, and he's continuing to expand his championship lead. And it's really remarkable to think that a driver, if he keeps this margin or expands in the next two races this weekend, that he could literally, decide not to even go to Sandown, and he could still be the championship leader after that. This is truly, truly spectacular how SVG is driving right now, and there's seriously nobody who can challenge him for the championship right now. And too bad Scott McLaughlin went to the INDYCAR series, because he'd be the only driver that could challenge SVG for the Supercars Championship. I don't want to say that SVG has one hand on the championship right now, because it's still too soon. Still got quite a lot of racing left in this year's Supercars season. But SVG, he's getting closer to reaching the hand out to try to put one hand on the championship. And like you said it best, Adam. This is an SVG world, and we're just living in it. And that's bad news for the rest of the competition.
Yep. And with that being said, it's now time for everybody's favorite game here at Grid Network, Pick a Winner. And we got a lot of races to cover this weekend, so let's get started. First up, Formula One is at the Hungaroring in Hungary. George Russell starts on the pole. And we talked about some notable drivers who have won their first career victory. So I'll start with you, Ben. Does George Russell put his name on the list as a first-time winner in F1 at the Hungaroring tomorrow morning?
Yes, he does. Red Bull are starting too far back with Perez and Verstappen. Hamilton's back there a little bit as well. And I just don't trust Ferrari right now. I really haven't trusted Ferrari for the last 14 years, like I mentioned last week. So I'm going to go with George Russell to take his first career win, and Mercedes' first win of the season. Again, it's kind of a shock that we're saying that this deep into the year, but I think Russell gets the job done tomorrow.
Yeah, we're in agreement here. I also think that George Russell is going to get his first career Formula One Grand Prix victory. Mercedes has worked very hard in the last couple of months or so, getting this car as best as they can get it, and maybe George Russell will be able to hold off the Ferraris at the start, especially since I mentioned earlier this track is so hard to overtake at, and that very well may work in the advantage of Mercedes and Russell, and he's going to be so excited if he's able to take his first career checker flag in Formula One. And before this, I was actually going to go with Verstappen, but 10th place, even in a Red Bull, that's certainly going to be quite a challenge for him to try to get to the front and win.
I think I'm reading both of your minds, because I'm also going to say that George Russell gets his first career F1 victory tomorrow at the Hungaroring. Kind of weird to say that it would be Mercedes' first victory of the season, and it's not by Lewis Hamilton. Kind of crazy. but we'll see what happens. Next up, the NTT INDYCAR Series is at the legendary IMS road course, and the races is about to get underway in just a few minutes. So, Ben, I'll start with you. Who wins the Gallagher Grand Prix at the IMS road course this afternoon?
Well, if I may just follow up real quick, I think the last time 3 people on the pre-race show were in agreement and picked George Russell, it didn't necessarily work out. So I guess congratulations, Ferrari fans. We might have just jinxed him, but we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. When it comes to the IMS road course and the IndyCar Series, I think we talked about him quite a bit during the show today, but I'm going to go with Will Power. It's one of his best tracks. I think he gets the job done, and I think he takes over the points lead from Marcus Ericsson after today's race.
I'm in agreement there. I think Will Power is going to get the job done. I believe I picked Will Power to win the GMR Grand Prix back in the month of May, but Mother Nature had other plans and ultimately helped spoil Will Power's day there. So I think he's going to get the one that got away and continue adding to his list of wins at the IMS road course, one of his best tracks in IndyCar competition.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with my colleagues, and I'm going to go out and say Joseph Newgarden. After what happened at the Iowa Speedway last time out, how cool would it be to see Joseph Newgarden come through with the victory at the IMS road course? And we stay at the IMS road course as the NASCAR Cup Series is running there tomorrow afternoon. All right, Ben, I'll start with you. Who captures the checkered flag at the IMS road course for the NASCAR Cup Series?
Well, I'm tempted to go with a road course ringer. I think you might know who I have in mind for that, but I'm going to refrain from doing that. I just think he's a very good road course racer, and he's the hottest driver in the Cup Series right now. Chase Elliott's calling my name, so I'm going to go with the number 9 Hendrick Motorsports team.
Yeah, you certainly can't go wrong with Chase Elliott on a road course, but I think another road course, quote unquote road course ringer is gonna get the job done. I think it's gonna be a driver that only has one win so far and can get win number 2. It's gonna be the Daytona 500 champion Austin Cindric getting it done at the Yard of Bricks and adding on to the Cindric family legacy at the Speedway.
Well, I'm gonna go with the driver who also has one win this season, and we talked about it. Yeah, I'm going Chase Briscoe to win tomorrow at the IMS road course. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. And next, we go down under to Australia, where the Repco Supercars Championship is at the Bend Motorsports Park. I think we all know who we're picking for races 2 and 3. So, all right, Ben. I think I know where you're going. So let's hear it. Does SVG sweep the weekend?
Yes, he does. And as always, I defer to you since you're the Supercars expert, so don't take any fantasy advice from me. But this is just kind of my way to gain as many pick-a-winner points as I can. I pick SVG for every race, just like Joe picked Kyle Larson every race last year, and see how it works out for me. It usually works out pretty well, though. So I'm going to go with SVG.
Yeah, and I'm trying to protect my pick-a-winner lead, so I'm going to go with Shane Van Gisbergen and Shane Van Gisbergen.
And I'm trying to catch you, Kobe, but I'm making it unanimous here. I'm also saying Shane Van Gisbergen sweeps the weekend at the Bend Motorsports Park. Next, we go across the pond to London, England, as the FIA Formula E series is there having a double hitter. So I'll start with you, Ben. Who wins in London?
I must admit, I haven't been too up on Formula E this weekend, so I might be way off base here, but I'm just going to take a shot in the dark and say Mitch Evans gets her job done.
I picked Mitch Evans in race 1, but unfortunately he didn't get the job done in London. I'm going to go with the driver that actually just won a little while ago in the first race in the London Prix. I think he's going to sweep the weekend. I think Jake Dennis is going to get the job done and break out the broom at the top step of the podium.
And I'm going to have to say that I'm going to say Mitch Evans gets the win in race 2 at the London Prix around the streets of that historic UK city. So I'll throw it over to Ben as he wraps up this edition of the pre-race show.
Thank you, Adam, and be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network here on YouTube if you're not already. Follow us on all our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We even stream live on Twitch as well. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can, or today rather, I guess I should say, it's not even this morning, not even noon over here on the East Coast yet. But if you like what you saw, regardless, take 5 minutes after our show, consider joining our Patreon, invest in the Grid Network to help keep us on the air throughout 2022. And of course, as always, a special thank you to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, our monthly investors. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent, whether it's me, Adam, Kobe, Joe, anybody at Grid Network. And as always, thanks to Edward, Amber, and Zachary who have already done that. Finally, visit our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDNET will give you $5 to invest. You see it on screen there. It's also in the description box below. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, join us tomorrow night, 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race on the IMS road course to recap a very busy weekend of racing, including both Formula E races in London. For Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, Daniel Zeri, and Adam Lemeries, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching and enjoy today's races.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on Public.com.